He was designated Asset 73 by the Zoranth Command, an unremarkable label for what they believed was a captured Earth soldier. The outpost where they kept him was hidden on the fringe of a dead moon, far from any eyes that might protest. There were no trials, no inquiries, just a steel cell and an endless cycle of pain. They didn't want information. They wanted a warning to Earth, an example. But they chose the wrong man. The soldier never screamed. They broke bones, severed tendons, flooded his body with bioelectric currents meant to fry neural pathways. Still, no sound. Not even defiance. Silence. His eyes, however, were wide open. Calculating. Memorizing. Every face that entered his cell was filed. Every step in the hall beyond the door was counted. Every shift change, every guard's name, every weapon holstered too loosely. He was watching, never begging. The Zoranth torturer, a gleaming insectoid officer named Varkal, took it personally. His pride was in cracking minds within hours. Asset 73 was now at day 12. So Varkal escalated. Hallucinogens, nerve degradation plasma, forced starvation. Still, nothing. It was no longer an interrogation. It was performance art. Varkal began recording the sessions, broadcasting them in encrypted feeds to Zoranth commanders, offering his mastery as a symbol of Zoranth's superiority over the primal species from Earth. But the humans weren't watching. Not yet. On the 14th day, the medics flagged something strange. The soldier's vitals weren't deteriorating, they were stabilizing. Despite internal bleeding, despite fluid loss, his system was adapting. Repairing. They ran scans again. The results confused even the machines. Cortical activity patterns showed heightened awareness, not degradation. The human was focusing. It was the technician, the youngest on rotation, who voiced it first. "He's not breaking. He's learning." The others laughed. A chained human, broken and bleeding, a threat? Absurd. And yet, the laugh didn't last long. Because that night, 2 guards on duty outside the prisoner's cell turned on each other. One was found strangled with his own belt. The other had no memory of doing it. Varkal dismissed it as stress-induced error. The base was under pressure. He ordered an internal sweep, reset patrol shifts, locked down AI access for lower staff. But Asset 73 remained silent. His pulse never spiked. His eyes never blinked more than twice per minute. One officer reported that his stare felt too still, like he was waiting for something to begin. On day 17, a strange message was intercepted by the Zoranth base comms array. Not a distress signal. Just a short packet, transmitted through a dead civilian relay once buried beneath Earth's lunar ice. A line of code. A signature. Encrypted with a cipher that hadn't been used in centuries. They couldn't decode it. But Earth could. Back at Zoranth Command, leadership debated ending the experiment. Varkal protested. He insisted they were close to something valuable. That the human was on the edge of collapse. That soon Earth would see their soldier displayed across the stars as a shattered remnant. He wanted one more session. One final broadcast. And so, the next day, Asset 73 was dragged to the central interrogation deck. Shackled, barely clothed, ribs visible, blood dried across his jaw. A dozen cameras circled him. This was to be the triumph reel. The Zoranth would prove that humanity was still tameable. But as Varkal prepared the final injection, the soldier tilted his head for the first time. His neck cracked softly. His lips moved. "You're already dead." No one heard him. No translator caught the phrase. It wasn't meant for them. It was meant for Earth. And Earth was listening. The transmission arrived at a classified Earth listening station buried deep beneath a frozen ocean. Encrypted, fragmented, and routed through defunct satellites, it pinged once, then vanished. The signal was old-world military code, retired decades ago, known only to a handful of handlers who specialized in the kind of operations Earth officially denied ever existed. No location, no footage, no request. Just a single identifier embedded in the message, Spectre active. It triggered a cascade. Defense Command rerouted all secure channels. No announcement was made, no meetings held. Earth didn't issue a threat. It didn't respond with fleets. It opened a black file last accessed during the final days of the Martian insurgency. Inside it, a blank page, a single designation, and one red-stamped word. Deployable. Earth had learned long ago that retaliation through conventional means wasn't always sufficient. Sometimes silence was the most devastating reply. The soldier who'd been taken wasn't just another name in the system. He was tagged under contingency directives reserved for worst-case scenarios. His profile carried a buried trigger. If lost in action under hostile conditions violating treaty codes, Earth's response was neither diplomatic nor proportional. It was procedural. Those at the top didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. They activated Protocol Vanta. An unmarked vessel, registered to no fleet and visible to no satellites, launched from a facility not found on any planetary registry. It made no sound. It left no emissions. It carried no transponder, no signal, no crew manifest. Inside was no team, no battalion, no envoy. Just one presence. The handlers called it a ghost. No records, no identity. Trained outside standard doctrine. Recruited from those who had already been declared dead. It didn't speak, didn't question, didn't hesitate. It executed one principle: restore equilibrium through elimination. The route it followed wasn't charted in any database. It moved between relay shadows, gravitational bends, and forgotten warp tunnels. Wherever it passed, instruments flickered. Comms dropped for seconds. No one noticed because it was designed that way. Back on Earth, official channels maintained silence. Diplomats continued with standard operations. Civilian networks were not informed. There was no outrage, no condemnations, no military buildup. Earth had long realized that vengeance required no spectacle. Meanwhile, Zoranth Command celebrated their message. The footage of the human soldier, bleeding and restrained, was distributed among high-ranking officials as proof of superiority. They viewed Earth as sophisticated but soft, too entangled in treaties and protocol to retaliate meaningfully. They misread the quiet as weakness. They assumed humanity would react like every other species, petition, protest, maybe retaliate through official fleets. But there were no fleets mobilizing. No protests issued. Not even a word of acknowledgement. That's what began to unsettle a few observant Zoranth tacticians. Earth didn't respond at all. The base that held the soldier, isolated and fortified, waited for some kind of retaliation. Interceptor drones scanned nearby space. Shield systems were placed on high rotation. Troop readiness was raised. Nothing came. But in Zoranth's own outer relay systems, a pattern emerged. Subtle at first. A maintenance satellite drifted off its path. A listening post near the asteroid belt stopped reporting. Internal diagnostics showed normal operations, until their own engineers realized the logs had been overwritten. Not corrupted. Rewritten in Earth's ancient military scripting, buried in levels of code no Zoranth AI could access. It wasn't a glitch. It was a sign. Zoranth leaders brushed off concerns. They believed Earth was bluffing, posturing. They had seen humanity's diplomacy before, always cautious, always formal. So when a second signal pulse, barely detectable, crossed their internal network, they dismissed it. They didn't see what it carried, a silent sequence embedded in machine language. 4 numbers. A countdown. Earth had sent its response before Zoranth realized they were even in a conflict. No demands. No warnings. Just a ghost, already en route. The first anomaly was dismissed as a sensor glitch. A motion detector on the perimeter wall registered movement where there was none. 2 minutes later, a second triggered in the hangar bay, then a third near the main reactor access shaft. Each time, nothing was found. Security logs were reset manually. No trace remained. No alarm sounded. The internal AI noted inconsistencies but couldn't trace origin. The system flagged minor anomalies, power dips, brief comm interruptions, unauthorized diagnostics, yet prioritized none as critical. After all, the base was locked down, heavily fortified, and fully staffed. No vessel had docked. No breach had been recorded. The prisoner was still in his cell. And above all, the Zorinth believed they were untouchable. That confidence began to fray on the fourth night. A security officer failed to report in. His comlink showed he was stationary in corridor Sector 9B. A pair of guards were dispatched. They found his uniform in a pile on the floor. No blood. No wounds. No weapon. No trace of the man himself. Just a small smear of black ash on the wall behind where he'd last stood, like smoke had touched it and vanished. Hours later, a maintenance drone began rotating erratically, its behavior resembling panic. Internal footage showed it slamming into walls, then stopping completely before self-deleting its memory logs. Attempts to restore its core data revealed an overwritten script in a Dead Earth dialect, the language no one could translate. Paranoia crept in. Officers began traveling in pairs. The command center was sealed, codes rotated every hour. Visual scans swept every corridor every 5 minutes. But strange things continued. Environmental controls shifted without request. Gravity in a lower wing increased by 6% for 13 seconds. All lighting in the northern deck dimmed simultaneously and wouldn't return to full brightness. A logistics officer reported seeing shadows moving behind reinforced glass where no corridors existed. The base psychologist labeled it mass stress-induced hallucination. Until she disappeared. Her office was found pristine. Console still active, warm tea beside her chair. No sign of forced entry. Her logs had been accessed an hour after she vanished, entries edited, then deleted. The logs now looped a single phrase in ancient Terran Morse: "We are still watching." Command ordered a Level 3 sweep. Troopers in full armor combed every floor. Drones flew grid patterns. AI scanned every frequency. Nothing. The prisoner remained chained, unmoving. But his vitals were rising. Heart rate steady. Cortisol low. Neural activity spiking. It was as if he was synchronizing with something. That night, the base lost an entire deck's worth of sensor feeds. 24 minutes of total blackout. When systems returned, the personnel assigned to that level were gone. Their quarters intact. Weapons left behind. Food trays still warm. No sign of struggle. Just absence. From then on, the fear was palpable. Personnel whispered of an intruder that didn't open doors, that left no footprints. Some said it moved through walls. Others claimed it was already inside the base's mainframe. One officer, before disabling his own comlink permanently, muttered, "It's not a man. It's the silence itself." The command AI finally classified the anomalies as an active incursion. Emergency protocol was initiated, but failed to engage. A single file appeared across every terminal, blinking slowly: "Retaliation in progress." Those words had not been programmed by Zorinth systems. They were an announcement. From that point forward, no one left their post alone. Sentries doubled up. Lights were kept on at full brightness, even as power cells began draining faster than expected. The base's atmosphere grew heavy. Communications with external relays distorted. An engineer tried to send a request for extraction, but found the transmission rerouted, then erased mid-send. Zorinth Command never received his message. Instead, their long-range scans showed the base operating normally. No signs of conflict. No indicators of internal failure. Just perfect, unnatural calm. And inside that calm, the ghost was already moving. By the 5th day, the command center resembled a bunker rather than a base. Officers no longer discussed tactics, they whispered theories. The once confident hierarchy collapsed into silence and suspicion. Half the internal staff had vanished. Some were found days later, curled in corners of dark rooms with vacant expressions, minds fractured, eyes fixed on nothing. Others left no trace, as if removed from reality itself. Commander Valeth, the architect of the original interrogation, refused to acknowledge the link between the disappearances and the human prisoner. He remained in denial even as his executive aide vanished mid-conversation. One moment, she stood at his side, reciting shift schedules. The next, the air shimmered slightly, and she was gone. No sound. No flash. Just erasure. Panic spiraled. Security protocols failed to isolate any culprit. The AI core looped diagnostic cycles, each time terminating prematurely with the same corrupted message. Origin cannot be defined. Attempts to restore backup systems triggered recursive code locks, locking the engineers out of their own control decks. Doors began operating on their own. Cameras displayed rooms that didn't exist. One terminal began broadcasting a loop of Earth's planetary anthem slowed down to a distorted, whispering crawl. Command tried to isolate the core systems. When engineers attempted manual shutdown, the control rods melted in their hands. No warning. No heat spike. Just instant liquefaction. Within an hour, the lights in the reactor chamber flickered, then turned blood red. No one entered again. The hangar was sealed. Docking systems were deactivated remotely. Escape was impossible. Not because the exits were damaged, but because the systems no longer recognized any clearance. Even the commander's credentials returned invalid. It was as if the base itself had been hijacked, not by a virus, but by an unseen will. A squadron was dispatched to check the prisoner. Only one returned. His armor was intact. No wounds. But he spoke in a language no Zorinth recognized, muttering the same 4 syllables again and again until his heart stopped without cause. The last standing officers barricaded themselves inside the central vault, thick walls, biometric locks, independent power. There, in the most secure place the base offered, they waited. Guns loaded. Armor sealed. But the fear had already seeped into them. They knew it wasn't enough. At 0400 hours, the temperature dropped to sub-zero despite environmental controls reporting nominal. Condensation formed inside helmets. Breath turned to mist. Then the lights failed. All of them. The vault was swallowed in total darkness. No breach alarm sounded. No explosion. Just silence. Something walked past the door. No footsteps. Just pressure, faint vibrations that shouldn't exist on reinforced titanium floors. One officer opened fire blindly. The rest followed. Shells ricocheted against walls. Sparks lit nothing. No target. But when they stopped, a low hum echoed from the vault speakers, even though they were disconnected. It wasn't a voice, not fully. More like intent made audible. This is balance. One by one, their heart rates accelerated. Neural stress surged. Implanted monitors failed. The commander's last act was to press his emergency beacon. It activated, flashed green for 2 seconds, then turned off without sound. When Zorinth's nearest reconnaissance vessel arrived, the base appeared untouched. Power systems read normal. Docking beacons were active. The outer hull unscathed. But no signal answered. No data pinged back. The boarding crew entered cautiously, every system apparently functional, yet no personnel present. The base was spotless. Not a single drop of blood. Not a single sound. In the central command chamber, the large screen displayed a looped message in Terran code. Recompense delivered. Further violation will ensure extinction. ****. There was no trace of the prisoner. His cell door still locked from the inside. Restraints untouched. Feed logs wiped. The ghost had come and gone, leaving nothing behind but the silence of absolute retribution. The official report submitted by the Zorinth recon team was brief and clinical. Base secure. No survivors. All systems operational. Investigation required. But those who read between the lines understood the truth. A facility housing nearly 200 personnel had gone silent without a single sign of combat. No scorch marks, no barricades breached, no conventional cause. Just absence, total and deliberate. The footage they recovered was worse than nothing. It looped fragments of still corridors, empty chairs, and unopened rations. Life had simply ceased. In every department, the same digital residue pulsed beneath the surface, a code signature embedded deep in the operating systems. Echo \73 / resolved. Attempts to scrub it failed. Attempts to replicate it crashed entire systems. When one technician tried to trace the origin, his workstation shut down, and his access was permanently revoked by the system he was supposed to control. Zorinth leadership panicked behind closed doors. Retaliation had been anticipated from Earth, yes, but not like this. Not so quiet, not so surgical. They expected a fleet, perhaps a tribunal complaint, or at most, a sanctioned strike. Instead, they lost a fortified installation with no evidence left behind, except the growing fear that it could happen again. The surviving commanders demanded answers. Earth gave none. No statement, no denial, no threats. Just silence. When asked directly through official diplomatic channels about the vanished base, Earth's envoy paused for a long moment before replying. "We are not aware of any hostile action from our side. However, we do advise that all Terran citizens held outside of Council jurisdiction be returned immediately." No further comment was offered. The Galactic Tribunal convened. Zorinth petitioned for investigation, citing unprovoked assassination of infrastructure. Their demands were heard, logged, and quietly stalled. Other species listened to the evidence, noted the lack of proof, and drew their own conclusions. Behind the tribunal's polished facade, whispers spread. Earth had sent something off record. Something no nation would admit existed. And whatever it was, it didn't need approval to act. Smaller empires began reassessing their treatment of Terran civilians. Patrol routes were updated. Detention protocols quietly amended. Border authorities started waving through human freighters without inspection. Word spread fast in the darker parts of space. If you harm one of theirs, you may not see the retaliation, but you'll feel the aftermath, if you survive it. The phrase, Echo 73, became shorthand among mercenaries and smugglers for an operation that no one should ask about. It entered black market briefings as a cautionary tale. Some claimed it was a classified Terran AI, unleashed only under extreme circumstances. Others insisted it was a soldier trained beyond normal human limits, designed for disappearance, retribution, and deniability. A few believed it wasn't human at all, just something Earth built to remind the galaxy of its quiet capabilities. No one really knew, and that was the power of it. What remained undeniable was the impact. Zorinth's chain of command fractured. Their expansion stalled. Recruitment declined. Allied factions began distancing themselves, citing instability. One by one, once proud banners of dominance were lowered, not by war, but by fear of what could not be seen, tracked, or stopped. Back on Earth, no medals were awarded. No parades held. The mission never appeared on any terminal. No after-action reports, no commemorations. Just a closed file with a timestamp and a silent return of Protocol Vanta to standby status. In a quiet sector beneath the crust of a long decommissioned lunar station, a sealed chamber released a single breath of cold air. The occupant stepped out, unspeaking, unacknowledged, his path already decided by those who would never admit he existed. There was no debrief. There was no need. Elsewhere in the stars, another listening post recorded a faint, identical pulse through forgotten frequency bands. Another signature. Different name. Different target. The ghost had returned to sleep. But Earth was already preparing the next one,